Good morning. Welcome to Headline Focus here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is Tuesday, the 10th of April 2018. Let's have a look at what's making the political headlines today. So to start with, it is the 20th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, and as such, events are going on in Northern Ireland. And indeed, mainly in Northern Ireland, with many leaders attending and former leaders attending, including Tony Blair's former Chief of Staff, Jonathan Powell, former Taoiseachs, and former First and Deputy First Ministers as well. Former US President Bill Clinton will also make an appearance, and Karen Brady, the Northern Ireland Secretary, will also be making an appearance on behalf of the UK government. Now, this is, of course, bringing a lot of commentary with regards to Brexit and the Northern Irish border and the impact on the Good Friday Agreement to the forefront of the news again. In an article for The Observer, Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, former US presidential candidate, said the hand of history will be both heavy and unforgiving if the return of a hard border on the island of Ireland after Brexit destroys peace. Now, there is something which hasn't been quite as good for Labour in that Shadow Trade Secretary Barry Gardiner, a Good Friday Agreement is being played up in the Brexit negotiations. Now, that's what he's been reported as saying in a leaked recording obtained by the Labour website, The Red Raw. Now, that was at a private meeting in Brussels last month. Obviously, very difficult there because it's a very harsh way of underplaying the Irish border significance in terms of what the impact of Brexit could be. And certainly for Labour, will not come as a good surprise. And there's a lot of reports that there is a lot of discontentment with Barry Gardiner as a result of this story. Gardiner has, of course, said that the story and indeed the reports is nonsense on stilts, but no doubt there'll be more lines on this as the week progresses. Next up, the other big story today, and indeed has been the story for the past few days as well, is what's happening in Syria and indeed the international response as a result of the suspected chemical weapons attack which happened on the weekend. Donald Trump, President of the United States, said yesterday he would take a decision on what to do within the next 2 days. Key thing, though, is that he's quoted as saying the US has a lot of options militarily, indicating for some that there is a possibility of extended military action in Syria by the US or perhaps US and allies. Now, the question is who those allies will be. To a certain extent, there's some embarrassment going on in the UK press today because French President Emmanuel Macron has actually been talking to President Trump regarding Syria. But Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the UK, has not actually talked to Donald Trump yet, the President. And so there's a sense that France is actually taking the forefront of the Syria case with the United States. And indeed, Times are reporting that President Macron is actually egging US President Trump on with regards to taking action on Syria. Now, May is being urged on a number of fronts to join any US-led military strike against the Assad regime as a result of these chemical strikes, which is strongly suspected coming from the Assad regimes and then strongly suspected of being chemical attacks, including Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson reportedly and Chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Tory MP Tom Tugendhat, who said the Prime Minister should stick with her allies. Now, remember in the backdrop of 2013 when David Cameron tried to get parliamentary approval for airstrikes in Syria, did not happen. He was defeated there, and that cut off any possibility of extended action for the UK. At that point, will Theresa May go for it again? Will Theresa May take it to the floor of the House and try and secure the support? That is something which, again, is on the political agenda coming up in the next few days as well. And finally, Prime Minister is looking towards the more domestic agenda today after returning from Scandinavia to talk Brexit. She returns to announce a £75 million new funding for prostate cancer treatment and research, due to make the announcement visiting a Cambridgeshire hospital today. Tens of thousands of men will be recruited to take part in the research, reportedly, with the government strategy against... this is part of a government strategy against Labour attack lines, which have been very effective with regards to NHS, particularly over funding and cuts and the impact it's having on the quality of healthcare and indeed social care. This is also part of the Conservative government wanting to develop a long-term plan for the NHS. Now, remember, David Cameron had his long-term economic plan, which we always heard about at every single news soundbite interview with the Prime Minister. But this is going to be Theresa May's reportedly big thing, a long-term plan for the NHS, with Downing Street also confirming a new multi-year NHS budget, which will be announced to coincide with the Health Service's 70th birthday a little later this year. That's pretty much it for today. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we're doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and Twitter right here. But from me and all the team here at Core London, have a fantastic start to your Tuesday.